Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of the Rugby League Roundtable. I'm your host, James Graham, joined by Tony Mestrov, the administrator, Shane Flanagan, the coach, the player, Aaron Woods, and the journalist, Brent Reed. We're talking any other business, just like any roundtable business meeting, AGM. You have any other business, some things that we may have missed along the way. One of the things that we sort of brushed over was solving the third party conundrum. It's a bit of a sticking point with the fans. Tony, come to you as the administrator. Can we solve this? Is this an unrealistic dream?
No, not really. I think it's one of those blights on the game, I reckon. I just think that there should be a cap on it. There's various clubs over a long time. Everyone knows who they are that give large third-party deals. And, look, they are scrutinised by the NRL, but I think it's just I think it's got to a point now where they're out of control. I think there needs to be a cap.
But then is that not a restriction of trade?
Not really, because at the end of the day, you're expected to pay a player their worth. And if it's unlimited, as such, I just don't think that's in the best interest of the game.
So busy with the third parties, players can get as much as they want as long as the club isn't involved in the process.
Correct. The manager, the clubs are absolutely hands off, and the manager negotiates the deal.
Is it still in the contract though of the player with the club? We will, to our best endeavours, we will get you X amount of dollars.
No,
third party deal.
No,
that is not. So it's completely separate from the NRL contract.
You can make introductions, okay?
Introduction, that's it. But look, at the end of the day, the other issue on the other
side, you can make an introduction. I mean, come on, like no one's making it. Hey, meet Dave. He runs a plumbing business.
See, I don't know.
All right, yeah, cheers.
I reckon third parties.
Great. Can I get a picture, please? No, it's going. You're meeting Dave.
They should be
not meet Dave from the.
You can't stop a bloke like Nathan Cleary, Reece Walsh, the big stars of the game. They should be able to earn as much as they can away from football. For me, I don't think you should be allowed to cap that stuff.
But I think their deals would travel with them.
And I know it makes things difficult.
Their deals would travel with them based on. So if Nathan Cleary was to move even to another sport or move to another team, his deals with his current third party deals, they would move with him.
Yeah. I don't want to restrict what the players earn. That's not the go here. But I just think that it provides an advantage for certain clubs the way they're set up.
Well, there's no doubt it does.
It's not fair.
Well, Brisbane are they're not a one-team town anymore, but they're a big club in a big city, right? So obviously it does. But I don't know. I don't think you should. The NRL should be allowed to say to Reece Walsh, you can only earn $200,000 in third-party deals. When we know Reece can probably earn $500,000. I mean, he's got a deal now with, I can't remember who it was, one of the really high-end labels. Like, you shouldn't be able to stop him, Ralph Lauren. You shouldn't be able to stop him earning that. I don't, it does, and it benefits our game. Like, Ralph Lauren's never sponsored a rugby league player until they sponsored Reece Walsh.
Do you reckon the manager's going to get that deal?
That's my question. Is the club helping him get that deal, or is
they're allowed to make introductions?
Yeah,
you're allowed to.
But I think in a case like Reece Walsh, you don't need the club to make the introduction.
No,
it's.
I understand where Messi's coming from, and
it's a great area.
Kind of right, because the Dragons, I imagine, wouldn't have a lot of third-party deals because Wollongong's not a city like Brisbane, obviously. But I just think when you, I don't. We already limit players' salaries with a salary cap. And then you're going to limit what they can earn away from football. I think that's too much.
Yeah, the only sort of concern I have that we always say we want to play off an equal playing field, and we get a salary cap, and then say for example some other clubs are have got $1 million in third party agreements when one other club might only have 200,000. So it's not really an even playing field.
Brisbane never won a comp in 14 years. 2010 last time they won a comp. I mean. It hasn't really given, if you go by that, the advantage isn't that significant. I mean, the other big third-party deals in the comp probably Melbourne.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and Ryan Pappenhausen is a guy at the moment who's in contract talks. I think he's got reported $200,000 in third-party deals off the field. A lot of that'll, like you said, Jimmy, a lot of that'll come with him when he moves.
It's just tricky that it's part of, if it's part of a negotiation, I want to sign Aaron Woods, and we go, okay, I'll give you 800,000.
You don't have to worry about third party.
I'll give you 800,000 and we'll find a third party for you, That's the way, unfortunately, that's the way it works.
But how do you stop that?
That's what I'm saying. That's a tricky one. But as long as like if Reece Walsh signs on for the Bronx for $1 million and he goes out and his manager goes out and gets all these other deals, as long as it's not part of negotiations. But how do we control that?
Yeah, well, the managers also, the clubs aren't, the third party aren't bound to pay the player. That's the worst thing. So I've heard cases, not anything that it's ever happened to us, like the players haven't been paid third parties. I mean, that's not good enough in itself. So what kind of governance we got around it?
Well, surely you'd need a contract now with that third party.
That's not guaranteed money, but is it?
No, it's not. And there's a contract between obviously the agent.
I thought that had been removed. So you as the club, you can say, to our best endeavours, we can get you X amount of third parties.
No, you can't.
No, can't.
You can't.
No,
So
we're arm's length.
So these deals, who negotiates them? It's the agent
The agent's negotiating
with a business or a
third party.
a third party business. Well,
it's arm's length.
that should be a signed contract with that third party provider.
That's right. It is.
And they said if that's not paid, that's for the courts. I've signed a contract with whoever it may be, and if it's not being paid, we'll see you in court.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's just common that players in the past haven't been paid. Yeah. So look,
what
that needs to be tidying up.
What that tends to allude to when players haven't been paid in the past is that these have been,
Dodgy.
Or assured
Yeah.
by the club, or in a gentleman's agreement of, hey, if you sign, there's this wealthy business owner that's associated with the football club, not in an official capacity, that's going to tip into part of your contract. Yeah. That's what it suggests.
Well, it does. And look, we've got quite a few third parties, and that I'm always involved because I make sure the introduction or it's completely arm's length.
So what do you do, Messi? Once the introduction is done, you just pull yourself away straight away?
Out of it.
And it's just up to the manager and the player.
Yeah, yeah. And the hard thing is it's up to the manager and the player about the delivery as well. So they've got to deliver whatever that agreement is to keep that third party.
Well, things would have a value as well. So if you make a third party introduction to a big business, then that said player does a number of promotional activities for that. But that's got a value. But again, if you introduce them to a sort of local business owner that wants to tip in a bit of money to support a club like Manly, you know that him turning up to the kid's birthday party isn't worth 20 grand.
No, correct. And it's got to be genuine, like the genuine events for that money. You have to.
You have to earn your stripes.
Correct, and that's outlined and stipulated by the NRL.
The NRL police, is that right? The NRL
correct. They have to approve it.
Yeah.
So in that regard, it's fine, but it's like I said to you, it's the amounts of money.
So how does the NRL police it?
They've got to approve it. They've got to make sure that you are giving a benefit to that third party.
And so
they've got to okay.
Do you have to go to the NRL every time you do something for that person?
Well, the manager does. The manager goes to get approved with the NRL. We have, other than any introduction, we've got nothing to do with it.
So even if they go catch up and have a coffee, that doesn't count as you doing something.
Well, the NRL got to stipulate whatever their rules are. You got to give appropriate benefits, right?
Yeah. Because each one could be different, like you said with Reece Walsh, he could get over 500,000.
And third party it's not about cash as well. It's about cars and it's about football boots and apparel and clothing, Adidas and so on. All these companies, they're registered third party agreements. Part of the contracts.
Yeah,
you've been dealing with the company for years, haven't you? Clothing company.
I think we do get carried away with a little bit of the third party stuff and get frustrated with it. Some clubs, but it's only the elite. I reckon, and I'm not talking for Messi, but it'd be his top 5 players that clubs companies that come or individuals are coming for. They're not coming for player number 25, 26, 27. And Messi's not trying to go to the NRL and say, hey, our player number 27's got a 50K TPA here. Yeah. They're just not going to register it. It's just those top elite players that attract TPAs.
Yeah. I reckon it's overblown. I know it annoys clubs because some clubs do have a lot more money.
Well, those fans.
But I think it's I think it's overblown, Jimmy, because as I said, the Broncos have more TPAs than anyone. They've had more TPAs than anyone for as long as I've been in the game. They've won one comp.
It's giving
I said 2010, didn't I? Sorry, 2006 was the last comp.
It's giving them an opportunity to sign players, but Brady.
Yeah, but it hasn't helped them win comps.
It's given them the upper hand.
It hasn't helped them win competitions. Penrith have won 4 comps in a row. Like, aside from Nathan, do you reckon they got a lot of TPAs? I reckon they probably haven't.
Yeah.
And they won 4 in a row. So Look, what's more important than having TPAs is getting your club right and getting your club operating right,
True.
getting your nurseries right. That's way more significant than how many extra you get in TPAs.
Well, get your salary cap right first.
Yeah, well, that helps
Start.
too.
So, you know, we
True.
talk about, get some, 50, 100K, 200K, 300K worth of TPAs. No, get your salary cap right.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then that goes, get your recruitment right.
Yeah.
Don't be paying players out to go and play for other clubs.
Yeah.
So if you get all that right, you don't have to worry about the last bit.
That's actually a much bigger issue, Jimmy. Clubs paying players to play elsewhere. The NRL brought out they do it every year. They do a benchmarking thing, and they did it this year. And I think the average amount the clubs, the bottom 4 teams pay out of their salary cap for players at other clubs was over $1 million.
Wow.
So that's $1 million less of your salary cap. You're actually paying players at your club.
Penrith 2021 did it when they won the comp.
No, yeah. Well, they're a bit
In
different.
fact, they did.
Yeah.
They did. They're paying over $1 million.
To blokes at other joints. Yeah.
And they still won the competition.
Yeah.
So for those examples of, say, it's
Generally, it's an
generally
issue for the
speaking,
bottom 4. A much bigger issue for the bottom 4.
It is. And really, to your point, just generally on third-party agreements, if we cap it, we start to see players get their heads turned to other sports. Like if we look at a Suolihi, for instance, if he was to come back, his third-party agreements, if that is capped either individually or at a club level, well, you might not be able to fit him in. And, third-party agreements at Rugby Australia could be huge for a player. That could be the tipping point when it comes to our best individual players.
They might go to another club though. That's a good thing. Instead, and that's what Woodsy's talking about. Like the other clubs got the opportunity to sign someone if the third party wasn't significant, like they are a bit more in the one team, one town.
Interesting.
Do you have many TPAs in your career, Woodsy? Or?
None.
Please. What about you, Jimmy? Do you have many?
Couple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did it help convince you to change clubs or?
Just a nice bonus, mate.
Okay.
It's not a nice little bonus, really. On player contracts, Flano, you hear players aggravating to get out. Is there anything we can do about that? And the flip side of the old dreaded tap on the shoulder.
Yeah, well, clubs are as bad as players. Clubs will tap players on the shoulder, and players will want out. So it's when a contract, back in the day, a contract was a contract, and we probably wouldn't have ever even thought of trying to get out of it, or a club tapping a player on the shoulder. But things have just changed, and it's the way of the world at the moment. And I don't know what the answer is. But if players want out of your club, we're seeing what's happened with us at the moment. That I don't feel that sometimes you can try and make them love you, but in the end, it's like a girlfriend. If they don't, they don't. They're going to walk. So, it's a tricky one. Yeah, another little bit of that. Sometimes, Dad used to always tell me, someone's trash is another one's treasure. So, player wants out, you're going to find, he'll go to another club and you'll find someone else as well.
I guess you just can't allow players to leave when they've been, suggested a better offer elsewhere.
That's
for
tricky.
more money.
Yeah.
Like that's a tricky one. Like
disappointing.
Yeah, Tony, what are your thoughts as an administrator if a star player comes and says, "Look, I want to go," or even worse, a player that's performing beyond their value is where it tends to cause a lot of headaches in the press.
Yeah, Flano's right. Under the current rules, the players are as much to blame as the clubs, right? So everyone's taking advantage. When we want to move a player on from a salary cap point of view, you tap the player on the shoulder and go, look, you're better off moving. And then when a player kind of wants more money and going, so you get all cranky and going, why are you doing that? And, if you are contracted and then there's a club kind of comes in for the following year and then manager's going to start agitating 100% and they're going to want to leave if they got a bigger offer. It's just that the system, I reckon that we're all advantaging what we can under the system, but the system's wrong, I personally think. A draft would take care of it, and I noticed in the press that there's a junior draft the NRL looking at, but I just think that would take it away. I think the transfer, this whole issue is can be better done, I reckon, for the game. And it's a bad look. It's a bad look for for the club and the player as well.
Is the problem this gentleman's domain?
What do you mean, Jimmy?
Well, is it
What's this?
the players and clubs use the media too much in order to be the architects of these moves?
Well, Ben Hunt agitated the media, didn't he? And we saw how that worked out.
He'd been doing it for 18 months.
He had been for a long time. I
reckon that's...
I wrote a column that Flano didn't like, where I basically, and part of it, this wasn't the bit Flano didn't like, but part of it was that Ben Hunt sort of, it's almost become a model if you want to get out of a football club early, agitate. You know, I mean, he's a high profile player who can do that, but I reckon if you, what do they say? If you kick the can long enough, eventually a club will go, well, it's just, it's too much. I don't want you anymore. Leave. If you don't want to be here, get out.
Yeah.
And I think they did it the right way because they went, you go, well, we wipe it. We're not chipping in. You go find a deal elsewhere.
He did it
I
with
think
Zach
that's the
Lomax.
key. If you're going to do it, you've got to say to the bloke you let go, mate, if you want to go, you can go. We're not paying any money to go because that's the problem the clubs get into where they get guys who agitate to go and then they're chipping money anyway.
Or they say, we'll go on our terms if we find a suitable replacement.
Para's done it with Gutho.
Melbourne?
They've said, you can go, but we're not chipping money in for you.
Melbourne did that without a car as well, remember?
Yeah, they held on to him for
They
that.
held on to him. So you can,
I think there's, you got to look detailed to the, did we want Ben Hunt to go? No. But he agitated for a period of time and it just got to a point that we had to make a decision.
Yeah.
You talk about Clint Gutherson, Parramatta have done the same thing. No, I don't think they have. No, they've told Gutho that he mightn't play in the same position.
Yeah.
The detail has changed.
I think they also told him
my
he would
point
be
out of that
extended.
was
Yeah, it wouldn't be.
He wouldn't be extended.
my point out of that was they've agreed to let him go, but in doing so they've said we're not going to put money in for you. I mean, that's my understanding. You know better than me, right?
And that's happening in the game. And if a player, as I said, I think the Parramatta one's a little bit different because Gutho, in my view, he probably wanted to stay at Parramatta for his whole career.
Yeah.
But you know the other thing as well.
He did. He wasn't like Ben. Ben needed a change.
We haven't heard from Gutho either. We've heard from Ben.
No, exactly. Gutho hasn't
the
publicly
difference.
agitated.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been, obviously little stories about that he wasn't overly happy about the positional change.
He's never spoken about that.
No, he hasn't. But
That's
I
what
mean,
I'm saying.
it's coming from that camp, I imagine, that the story saying.
Or his manager.
Well, I don't know. It's from his managers, but people around, probably, everyone. I think we all understand the situation there. He wants to play fullback. They've said you're not going to be the fullback here. He wanted a long-term deal. They weren't willing to give him one immediately. So, that's filtered out into the media. We all know that situation. I mean, he's not.
I think it's more powerful when you hear it from Ben Hunt's voice that he comes out and says it.
Oh, there's
we
no
haven't
doubt
heard
it
it
is.
from Gutho.
Yeah.
No one's heard Gutho speak yet.
No.
And James, I think it's a little bit of. So I'll use the Dragons for an example. So. Anthony Griffin's there. He signed some players that I actually take over. And my opinion of, I go, and I've done this year. I've said to a few players that have got existing contracts for 25, 26, you can go if you find another club because he was signed by another coach. Yeah. And we have that right as a club. Mm-hmm. We're obliged to pay them and I'm happy to keep them. But I just say to them that, if you want to find another club or some other club that wants to take you up, and it happens a lot more so when they've got 1 year left in their contract, that, hey, listen, we're probably not going to re-sign you. And I think that's sometimes a good thing from the club. Listen, we're quite happy to keep you here this year or have a look around because you're not going to be here the following year. So it's a bit tricky. And
it gives a player 12 months to realise where he can and can't go as well.
And, since the Ben Hunt situation's happened, I've never had an argument with Ben Hunt. We've always, got on along fine. But in the end, I'm comfortable with it 2 weeks since it's happened because I just feel that Ben wanted it and, and we're comfortable with it now. Like if he came back this year, it would have been tricky to navigate all that through that period of time that, we weren't going to re-sign him for 26. So, is he off seeing Brisbane? Is he off seeing this club? It would have been in the media for the whole 12 months.
I mean, in your defence, Flano, I don't think, in the club's defence, I don't think I've heard anyone criticise you guys for. I know you thought I was having a go at the club, but I actually think you made the right decision in letting him go because you're right. It would have been a circus for 12 months.
Yeah, and then I get some other players come in. We'll use Damien Cook, for example. So Cookie's a really good leader, and he'll be one of our captains this year. And so then there's another story. Ben's not our captain. So I just think, in the end, Ben's happy. We're happy. When I see Ben Hunt, shake his hand and get on with it, that's fine. But this happens in modern day, and contracts, as I said at the starting, sometimes they mean nothing. They pay for their work.
A better story if you put one on his chin next time you saw him or something.
Only fight people bigger than me.
All he thinks about is the stories, isn't it?
He does. In your defence, Flano, like you said, we're not letting you go, and you didn't want to do that. You showed real strength. That's why they didn't get criticised, and you did. You go, he's a quality player, we want him here. But then there's a point where you just say, you know what, like let him go.
Well, and that's right. I tried for 12 months, and there's no question about Ben's commitment, and he had a really good year.
He did, yeah.
He had a really good year, and I enjoyed coaching him. But in the end, like, I couldn't change his mind.
No.
I tried, and it just didn't work, so we just move on.
Yeah, well, obviously, sometimes a player agitates for a release. We're seeing Terrell May, who's only just recently resigned, be given the tap.
Yeah.
I've been the victim of a very late tap on the shoulder myself. It's not a fun situation to be in, but, to really, and we talk about him, it's all about the story. Is this just all part of the soap opera?
Yep.
The side soap opera of rugby league that we've just got to learn to love?
I look at, Woody's an example. Woody got tapped on the shoulder at the Bulldogs, and I was so lucky to get him to come to the Sharks with us, and he was really good. And I would have, James Maloney, Michael Innes, all players that played in my Luke Lewis. Luke Lewis got tapped on the shoulder by Penrith.
Yes, that's correct.
And he came and played and won a grand final for me. Michael Innes got tapped on the shoulder by the Bulldogs, come and won a grand final for me. Fafita got tapped on the shoulder by West Tigers. There's so many of them. Sam Tagatese got tapped on the shoulder by the Titans, and they all came and played a grand final. So as I said earlier, it's whilst this is just a little bit of the cycle, the media cycle, but it works out good sometimes.
Yeah.
So sometimes the way a player plays doesn't suit the club. Like KO Weeks is at Manly, like we gave him that many opportunities. He goes to Canberra and he kills. I reckon the way they play in the forward power, it suited him. But Manly, for whatever reason, didn't suit him. So you got that as well. You got certain teams have got certain ways to play and a change
and
of
opportunity.
some players. Yeah, that's right.
Like he did have. You look at the Manly backline, it's, the star-studded and probably over the cap. But
we're not over the cap, actually, Shane.
But Tolu had to, had Tolu and so on. But
love Tolu.
Kaya had to go to get an opportunity, didn't he? Like a weekly opportunity.
Yeah, and it suited him. Like, he played really well this year.
He knew to get the opportunity because he wasn't going to get a start.
Yeah.
Just next on any other business, the no-fault stand-down policy. Do you think it's been a success? Tony, you as an administrator probably understand more of the significance and the impact of this not being in play.
I think from a sponsor's point of view and a commercial point of view, it has worked because, if someone does do like form a crime or what have you, and then they get found guilty. Where are you going to go? I think it's the right thing to do by the game. I know it might seem harsh on the player, but the rules are clear, right? If you do this, that's what's going to happen.
Well, the rules, it was brought in outside of the CBA.
Yeah, I know.
And then was grandfathered.
Yeah. There's lots of other, look, at the end of the day, I think it's the right way to go because the image of the game's everything. And, we're talking about parents making decisions to do it, AFL and soccer and whatever. I just think it's the way society and we're going. It's just not acceptable. There's lots of other sports where you can't have, I think in horse racing, you can't be a registered trainer if you've got a criminal records or what have you. Like, the game can't accept it in my eyes. I think it's the right thing.
Yeah, I know we always go, innocent until proven guilty, but we can't have players out there in our game while they're in the court system. I just think it's a no-brainer, as we said before, and it just has to happen. And if you're an NRL player, it's clear, that these are the rules, and we've got to abide by them. And I know we say, and I don't think NRL players are role models. I think they're just good athletes and playing a sport. but we're out there representing a club and a game, and we can't have that type of stuff hanging over our heads.
We have seen some players being accused of certain crimes, and then those accusations to be baseless. So, what do we do for those individuals that are affected, that have multiple years of their livelihood taken away?
Yeah, it's tricky.
Is that just just unfortunate? Like, do we just?
Yeah, well, we can't gamble on the court system, can we? And say, we hope they're innocent, and just continue to play them and pay them. It's just one of the byproducts of, if you put yourself in that situation, you're just going to have to deal with it.
Well, what do you think as a player?
Well, it's if you get charged for 11 years, isn't it? If the charge.
No, and Andrew Abdo has got the right to come in and have. There is
mandatory.
A mandatory.
Mandatory,
But Abdo has got the power to come in, especially if it's
discrepancy.
So that's like sort of someone like Curtis Scott, that he won't.
I think that might have been one. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think
they can choose to not register a
He won't
contract
register
for whatever
Curtis
reason
Scott at
they
the
want.
moment.
But if a player is accused or charged, I believe, with a crime that carries a prison sentence of over 11 years or more,
Automatic.
Automatic.
Well, I think if you do that,
but then Andrew Abdo has the ability to override that if the length of punishment is less, but he deems it as a accusation of a crime that's.
Well, I think if you bring in the game into disrepute, you got to get something's going to happen. And he's protecting the NRL. We're role models, like Flo said. We're ambassadors for rugby league. Everyone says, rugby league players, we work 24 hours, 7 days a week. We're always representing our club and the brand of rugby league. If you stuff up, there's going to be consequences.
I don't think anybody's debating
But we're talking
that.
about, we want to get great, more money for the salary cap, bringing in sponsors, better revenue. Well, toe the line. Simple as that.
But then the argument is, if nobody can help being accused of something that they didn't do.
I think you find, James, that the game doesn't abandon them during that period.
Okay.
That's important.
Well, look at someone like Jack DeBellin. The club still paid him for a long period of time. I think he's re-signed him when he was going through the court system as well. So the game's not stopping you from getting a wage either.
No,
they're still letting them get their wage. So if the game was really poor, they wouldn't let them get anything.
Really, the journalist.
Well, I covered this, the no fault, when I went through the court. I think I went through the federal court, or I sat through all the court arguments. It was a huge issue at the time, massive issue, because the players' union weren't happy about it. But I think it says a lot about it that now I think we just accept it now. Yeah. It's par for the course, right? I think that suggests that people have accepted it, and the players' union, while they mightn't like it, I mean, it's just part of life now. If you do the wrong thing, unfortunately, sometimes if you're accused of the wrong thing, you pay a price that, in hindsight, you probably shouldn't have paid. But
I think
that's the difficult part of it, Jimmy. Right?
If you do the wrong thing, yes. But then if it's you accused of doing,
yes,
this is
that's
where
the difficult part.
Yeah.
But I think that's just, as Flano said, it's an unfortunate byproduct of a rule that I think the game needed, and
it almost
benefited from.
Even though the collateral damage could be the falsely accused player, it's something that we just have to accept.
Well, what are sponsors not going to think if we just sit back and just don't do anything to these people?
You'll lose sponsors.
That's what I'm saying. And we want to commercially make the game better.
Well, in contracts, if there are incidents, sponsors have the right to actually withdraw. And there's the problem. If a club happens at a club and the NRL don't stand someone down, then you're going to lose that sponsor. But if they take a relatively tough line, you're a good chance of keeping that sponsor, aren't you? And that's important.
Just onto any other business, the stadium policy, really.
What
did you want to do to
on the bulldozer? I still think they should bulldoze it.
You want a bulldozer?
Well, they spent $30 million on it. It's like putting lipstick on a pig, Jimmy.
Give it a Brookvale, mate. 4 points.
So have they started that like-up project?
I think they might be doing it in the off season, but that needs.
Bring your mate, he'll tell you.
Yeah, I just think, Jimmy. I just think the game's moved beyond substandard suburban grounds. PointsBet Stadium, like fair income, it holds 13,000 people at the moment. The game's moved beyond that.
What about 4 Pines, Reedy?
Well, I live on the northern beaches.
You know, you're going to get rain out of the northern beaches.
Like, I'd be happy if the government threw money into those stadiums and did something to fix them and make them better, right? That's but if that doesn't happen,
You just don't want that to happen like that. They just chuck 30
no, I
million
said
in.
30 million is not enough. That stadium needs a lot more money spent on
It
it.
does.
But then
Like
would a rocking Leichhardt not be better than a library at a core?
Don't play at a court, play at Allianz. Great stadium. Fantastic stadium. Doesn't get used enough. Amazing football stadium. Until they can, look, if you want to play 1-2 games a year there, I can live with it. But I think they played 4 maybe. I can't remember what they played. No, they played more than that, didn't they, this year? I can't remember. Too many games at that ground, Jimmy. I understand the punters love it and the people who go there love it, but seriously.
Peter Verlander's come out and said we need suburban grounds, right? And he's right. Like, look at us this year. Like, we had 8 sellouts, right? You Brookvale.
Well, you're playing every home game there next year, aren't you?
12.
Yeah.
So look, we've obviously in discussion with developers. We're not waiting for funding. Like, how many years Brookie spoke about funding? It's not going to happen, right? In all seriousness. So we're talking to developers and we've taken the bull by the horns and we're going to do it ourselves. There's some exciting announcements down the track, and we believe that the people of Northern Beaches deserve a suburban ground, and they'll come in spades. Like, rugby league's back on the Northern Beaches. The juniors now, we've got a whole crop of 15-year-olds. Keep your hands off them, Flano. Juniors that are really good. So now, like, the public and the community is really bought in. So you're going to take that away. If we played at Allianz, just that whole brief goes.
How does that work, mate? When that's not your asset, but you're putting money into it. You're dressing up someone else's house.
Correct.
Community
council
stadium, right?
No, council actually own the oval, but we've had discussions with council that there'd be a JV and they would pull out at some point, and there'd be an ownership with whatever developer wins a tender process, with a small proportion being owned by the Manly Seagulls.
I would say there's a difference between Manly and the West Tigers, for example, where the West Tigers, you've got Combank Stadium in sort of that area where you've got Allianz potentially. Well, if you live on the Northern Beaches, well, I live there. You don't cross the bridge unless you've got to, Jimmy. We don't want to.
True.
So,
True.
And I would say that 4 Point Stadium, they've spent a fair chunk of money on it.
There we have.
Went to the ground. And I think it's a better stadium than Leichhardt in terms of facilities and the quality of the stadium. But I just think, you've got Combank Stadium. I think they played a couple of games there this year from memory, the Tigers. A fantastic stadium, holds 30,000. And when they played there, I think that was just about a full house. Now, most of them were Tigers fans. So they'll go to Combank.
Mezzy, you say that with Brookvale Oval, eventually Manly Seagulls will start to have more ownership of Brookvale Oval or 4 Pines. Great sponsor too.
Yeah,
Looked after me a little bit.
Just read the deal. Thank you. Todd.
Third party.
No third parties, mate. They're a sponsor.
Toddy's a great man.
He's a great.
No, with Manly taking more of an ownership of 4 Point Stadium, that leads me into the Sharks own their own stadium, and it's been a downfall in the end. Originally, 10 years ago when I was at the Sharks, it was always, we're the only club that own their ground, but I don't know if that's an advantage because the cost, they spend $1 million a year in maintenance and, they can't keep up with the maintenance and then they can't rebuild and, yes, while they've got this asset, I don't know if it is an asset.
Yeah. So the current state, as probably Shark Park would have been the same as Brookvale, you don't want to own that asset. But if you own, let's as an example, use the Queensland Country Bank Arena, like 23,000. If you model that at Brookie, like that is a moneymaker, right? But we'd only own like a certain proportion, the developer own a bigger proportion, whoever owned it, but it becomes a moneymaker, right? It always.
Nice that though, wouldn't it? Like,
if there was a Leagues club across the road
against that.
But you look at Shark Park, it needs to obviously been bulldozed and renovated. The ET grandstand's been there 25 years, 30 years.
They sell it. I thought they sold it all off.
No, and then the Southern Grandstand is probably 15, 20 years old, and they've only got the hill. The Leagues Club and on the eastern side has started work, but I know when I was at the Sharks, the maintenance and the upkeep and to only be able to squeeze 13,000 people and no corporate facilities, it doesn't fund itself.
No, it doesn't. And only a new stadium would make it financially worth it. And that's what you're saying. An old asset's just not worth it.
So it'd take somebody in the Sharks to basically build their own.
Well, you look at, we took our Anzac Day game, obviously, to Allianz, and I think, don't quote me on it, but I think, of course, of the corporate, we really walk out of there with $1 million.
Wow.
And you can't get that no matter what at Shark Park. You just haven't got those corporate facilities, and that's what stadiums like Allianz bring to you. You can sell corporate, high-end quality facilities. Sit in a beautiful seat, have nice food. And you just haven't got it, unfortunately, at Shark Park.
No, you haven't. And I don't know what the deal was a long time ago, but it seems like they didn't come out of it well. As a previous deal, obviously, Dino.
They have got that. They have got that Chinese restaurant that I've been to watch a game, and it's absolutely amazing. You don't even need a ticket to get it; just book a table. Is it unreal? Unreal. Right.
I feel sorry for Sharks fans. I mean, because I think we all thought when they sold that land around the ground that they'd end up with this stadium that was, I wouldn't say cutting edge, but at least would be, hold 16, 17, 18,000 people, and the facilities would be really modern. But it just hasn't turned out that way. And it seems like they're almost, it's ground to a halt.
Yeah.
And it's stuck at 13,000. And I can't see any blue sky for them. So it's really difficult because, I mean, as you guys noted, they own that ground, and they've got a leagues club there, and they, when they play games there, people go to the leagues club and they make money out of that. But man, for an NRL team to be playing in a stadium that holds 13,000 people, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for the game.
Previous management, I mean, probably got something to answer for there, Reedy. But that's an example of us not to do a deal like that.
You got to blame previous coaches.
Well, you built a great, didn't you? Built the gym.
He built a gym. Short fall for that.
So,
don't you think that's embarrassing? Don't you think
really,
that's embarrassing
when you put it like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't
He makes a
blame.
point, doesn't he?
I don't blame the people who are there now, like Dino and Steve Mace. They love that club and they're working really hard to find the money and they're lobbying government to fix that stadium up. So I think they've sort of inherited this, but it's just not good enough.
That's where you become administrator, you become innovators, because you got to deal with what you got. I'm dealing with what I've got, the council own, and I've got a good relationship now with the council. But Dino and Steve would be the same. They're scratching their heads going, right, how can we make the most out of what we've got?
And this is where we need the NRL, and which is what Peter Land's been doing with the grand final. Every year we only sell a grand final for 1 year because he's trying to get money out of the state government to fix 4 Pines and fix PointsBet and spend more money at Cogra. But he just that long-term deal that they'd arranged years ago, when Todd Greenberg was in charge, remember there's a memorandum of understanding where they're going to do 25 years of grand finals in Sydney in return for a newer core and all this money spent at these grounds. When that deal collapsed, they've been going year to year to try and generate, try and use that as leverage to get a long-term deal to fund the rebuild of suburban stadiums, and they just haven't been able to get it over the line.
Do you think it's likely? Is it achievable?
Well, I don't think so. It doesn't feel like it because
It'll just be an annual thing.
Well, at the moment, until they can sort it out. There's a lot of money in the game now, Jimmy, at the moment. And government...
Do you reckon they ever moved the NRL grand final?
Well, we did it once. I don't know.
Had to do it that year, but...
I'm not sure we'll do it again.
I know. But I've spoken to Andrew Abdo, and he's supportive of the funding. For Brookvale, he really is. But I just think there's no funding available at the moment. The state government, it's just... the coffers are pretty bare.
And obviously that impacts the wider community as well. Like there is natural, I guess, aggravation, disappointment when people see money being allocated to suburban grounds when there's, for some, clear alternatives. For others like Shark Park, not so obvious around where Cronulla would play.
Yeah.
But for others, like the Tigers, for instance, is, well, like Reedy said, just play at Allianz.
Combat.
Combat. Yeah.
Well, there's more to it as well. Like we're dealing now with the women's game, it's just gone through the roof. So there's more facilities needed. There's more dressing rooms needed. At all stadiums, Allianz is, obviously Bank Parramatta Stadium is, suitable for it. But there's not too many. Brookvale's definitely not.
No.
Wynn Stadium, yes. Cogwood probably yes, but there's a lot that
Penrith
wouldn't.
Park isn't.
No.
They're looking to do renovations
because
there.
we do need
changing rooms.
the women's game is expanding. And there's talk about I don't know where it is, Mezzy, with the under 21s competition maybe coming back in. So there's dressing rooms, there's training facilities.
So there's a possibility for a game day to look like 3 games, like it almost like it used to be, and with different sexes playing, that there's a certain requirement that's needed.
I reckon that I'd love that. Seriously, if there was obviously the NRL, the NRLW, and our national 20s or 21s, I think that'd be
ball
great.
on gamed. Yeah.
The other thing is, Jimmy, like Manly, for example, service a big junior nursery in the Northern Beaches. Cronulla's junior nursery is massive, isn't it? I'm right saying that, Funny.
Yeah,
They deserve a decent ground, those kids. And the kids do as well, because they get the chance to play on those grounds occasionally. So I know the government doesn't want to spend money there and they're reluctant to do it, but I think they just look at the NRL and go, it's just about the NRL team. But it's not just about the NRL team. Like, Cronulla's a huge rugby league nursery, huge. And those kids, if they're not playing rugby league, who knows what they're doing. So they need a football team there that has and they need a football team to aspire to play for, and a stadium to aspire to play on. And they don't have that. I think the government need to consider that a bit more.
The population is booming in the Shire as well, getting in and out there. There's units everywhere, construction everywhere you go. It's almost a bit of a nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's hard to get in and out.
Can be.
You battlers in the Shire, right? You battlers.
But you're more chance of getting funding out of the federal government with the election coming up now than state.
Yeah.
Really.
We'll finish on grassroots football. You spoke there really about some of these areas with huge participation numbers. The argument about whether we use the age categories and weight categories is often a point of debate. Flana, you as a coach, and you're obviously involved in a pathway system. Are we likely to change, and should we change?
I don't think we're likely, and I don't think we should. I think that our game is designed for the smaller, faster, more mobile athlete or player, rugby league player, up against the bigger one. Eventually, our game evens out. I think there's scope for allowance if there is, a young boy or girl that is a lot smaller, that they could go and play against. I think we just need to be a little bit flexible, and they could go and play maybe one age group down. But I don't think we need to be pushing big, strong young kids up age groups. I just think we need to be able to have the flexibility to take kids down.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Because they might not be mentally ready to go up.
No,
That's the
exactly.
problem. And the strength of some kids is a lot different.
Just because you've got a big
big
kid,
kid,
80 kilos, doesn't mean he's mentally switched on. Doesn't mean that he can handle those contact. It's it's a visual thing rather than a development thing.
Yeah,
so I think don't put kids up. I think we should be able to take them down, but just to keep them in the game.
Did your young boy play footy? Has he started
He
playing?
plays footy, yeah. But they don't play tackle. They play tag.
Okay.
From under 6s to 7s.
Yep.
In the
Is he a big
George-
lad in that age group?
He's tall, but he's not big like he's
And
skinny.
that's what's changing, Jimmy, is kids don't play our conventional game. They play tag. They're not allowed to tackle. It's non-competition. All these type of things to a lot older now. I think it's nearly to 12 and 13.
I think it's 11.
11 years of age. So, we're getting closer. So I don't see, it's definitely not a big problem in the Sutherland Shire.
Do we look at it through too much of the negative lens and not through the positive? Like, if you're small, you're going to face that adversity. You're going to come up against bigger people in life. But as you progress through the ranks, it's about finding the tools to navigate someone with a different skill set and different natural strength to you.
Say when you say that with the small, they got to learn different skills. I think by having winners and losers, they got to learn to win and lose. A lot of the junior clubs now don't. Junior age, like my own bloke, there's no winners or losers when they play. And the first thing he comes off and goes, "Dad, did we win?" And I was like,
Mum and Dad keep a score.
I said, "Mate, yeah, you had a shocker." Felt like your dad. Honestly, like the excitement for when he wins, and when you lose, you can't always win. But it's a lesson learned in life.
Yeah, well, you see sometimes kids crying. It's like, well, It's all right.
They can't lose.
Yeah,
mate.
there's
Get over it.
tomorrow.
But don't you think that we don't want to let the small kids out of the game when mum goes, I don't want you playing against those bigger players, and they're going to quit and they go somewhere else. I reckon that's what we need to stop.
Yeah, well,
that's the one. And I think there is an argument for weight to a certain level, because you don't want to stop that player from playing just because of their size, right? And they will go to another game. That's what I reckon we've got to stop. I don't have the answer.
You sort of damned if you police people from playing, they would go and play something else.
Yeah.
My mum didn't let me play rugby league when I was a kid.
Look at that.
Had nothing to do with your weight or height.
No abilities.
My dad played. My dad played till he was like 18, 19, and I met my mum and stopped playing footy, and she said, well, you're not playing football, because I wasn't a big kid, not the buff.
Imagine what you could have been.
Jimmy, I think they
could
do
be.
play. There is some weight in some junior leagues. I'm not quite sure what junior leagues they are, but there's definitely some junior leagues. Some junior leagues have trialled and tested.
I think that's it. If you're going to make such a drastic change, you need evidence to back that up. It's not just a knee-jerk emotional reaction like, oh, how can we have little Johnny playing against Big Steve? It's like...
But Jimmy, this has been an issue for a long, long time.
Yes.
And whenever they've made a change, it's like that butterfly effect, right? You make a change here and it creates another issue in another area. So I don't know if there is an ideal, perfect answer to it. I think no matter what system you use or model you use, there's going to be an outlier and people are going to go, well... I think that's it. And I think it's worked so far. It's produced a number of players. You tinker with that and we could, you're gambling with the future pathway system. Final thoughts, the biggest issue, Tony, come to you. What is the biggest issue the game is facing?
I think it's definitely the head knocks. I just think it is. I think from a legal point of view and a financial point of view, we've got to deal with it. And as much as there's some things we don't agree with here, I think the NRL are doing a great job, but there's probably more work to be done. I think there'll be challenges down about class actions and so on. So we just got to keep trekking in the way that we are. And I just want to say about the participation as well in the country areas and money in grassroots. I reckon that's a big problem as well we need to tackle.
When you say head knocks, what would you do to navigate it?
Look, I don't call myself any kind of expert. I think we're trekking in the right direction, but I think the NRL have foreseen that as a potential issue for the game. And I just think from a legal point of view, you could see it being a big issue.
Yeah. Flano, biggest issue in the game?
I don't know if it's the biggest issue. I think we touched on a few of them, but obviously, the best grounds, we've got a great product. We'd love to, I know, different, we talk about West Tigers, we talk about the Sharks, not so much the Dragons, but if we can solve the stadium issue, I think that's going to take us to another level, to be able to supply on the field. We're supplying a really good product. We want to be able to, a really good experience to go to games. As I said, I don't think it's a major issue, but I think it'd be great if we could tidy it up.
Yeah, attendance numbers have been, I think, the best they've ever been, but we can always look to improve that.
Yeah.
Woodsy?
Jimmy, I've got expansion and the length of the season. When that expansion does happen, I'd love to see every team play each other once. Don't know how it's going to work, but I think it's fair. Because sometimes you see, I see Reedy's articles, who's had the soft draw, who gets the, the A plus, C's, B's.
C's, yeah.
I love everyone to have an equal draw. And then, whatever top 8 is from that, they earn it.
We're due to get Fruggle one on the 15th.
Find out.
When does the draw come out? The 15th, does it? Did you say?
Yeah, 19th.
15th
But then you've got the origin in and around.
No, this month.
How are they going to work that out?
Yeah.
So 19 rounds of football.
Yep.
20 teams.
20 teams. It's interesting because then it does reduce the length, and obviously then it's I think that's everyone's ideal. But
it also gives time to promote international games at the end of the season if they
I
want to
love
do
the
that too.
mid-season test match as well.
Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't mind that.
Best.
I think that was a big. I remember going to a couple at the cricket
I
ground.
love watching it.
Yeah, I think that was good as well. So, we're saying one hand, I'm saying as a coach, we're playing too much. And then I'm saying let's bring back the Anzac Test. So.
Well, the short-term one's expansion because they've got to resolve that and resolve where they're going to go. But I think
just quickly before you go to your second point, are we any clearer?
Well, PNG's done. That's
So isn't it going to be the next one?
It's supposed to be team 19. Yeah,
That's what I mean. Yeah.
they're close. By the time this podcast comes out, Jimmy will probably know.
To who,
I think I think they'll sort out Perth and they'll get Perth done.
what is that? The timeline will be. It's imminent.
Perth 18-27, PNG 19-28, and then I don't know. You take your pick. South Island, New Zealand. I think it's their preference, or another Queensland team in sometime between 28 and 32. That's the ideal scenario, and they end up at 20 teams by the Olympics in Brisbane. So I think they'll get 18 and 9. The PNG's done. It's all agreed. Everything's done. Tax cuts, all that stuff. PNG tax cuts, all that stuff's agreed.
And Perth an independent consortium, or
Perth,
it's going to be a NRL back team.
Perth at the moment will be an NRL back team.
Yeah.
In conjunction with the WA government.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep. And then South Island, New Zealand, I think they're still working out what they do there because they weren't happy with the initial bids. So they may end up running their own team over there as well, which, I mean, they're putting $17 million at least. Like by the time the new teams come in, they'll be putting $20 million a year as a club grant.
Yeah.
So you might as well run your own team.
We'll be happy with that, Rudy.
Yeah. You might get more than that.
Yeah, good.
So I think that's the initial one. I'll tell you the other big one, I reckon, is the broadcast deal, the next broadcast deal.
When's that ready?
So it runs till 2027, but they've started talks on it now, a new broadcast deal. And the way television is now with Netflix and Amazon and less people watching traditional television, I think, and the expectation amongst the clubs, Messi will back this up, is they expect the TV deal this time to be a lot more than it was last time.
Wow.
So that puts pressure.
Relatively speaking as well, like, you account for inflation, but you think
also in comparison to the AFL got a big deal, right? And we always compare ourselves to the AFL deal. So I think there's an expectation this will go match the AFL deal, which is really big. So, the NRL's got to work out the best way they can do that given the changing broadcasting environment we live in.
So it's up 2027, so it's only got...
It goes to 27,
the end of 27?
End of 27.
Oh, so it's got 3 more seasons.
Got 3 more seasons, but they've started talking now.
Because I want to extend,
Yeah.
Is there a possibility the NRL run their own channel?
I think they've thought about that in the past, Jimmy, and it just hasn't...
Didn't they try to do that with NRL.com?
Yeah, they were going down that path, but I think they realised it was easier to let the broadcasters do it.
We will speak on the previous podcast. You weren't here, Brett. Sorry, yes. But I was speaking about Amazon, Google. That's the big opportunity for us, streaming.
Well,
hours a game.
Netflix is showing games, NFL games.
It's amazing.
Over Christmas, so everyone's got a slice of it. But I don't know whether is our market. Yeah. I wonder whether our market's big enough for them to dip their toe into the water on.
Do you think that? Yeah, I was going to say, do you think that's likely for the next broadcast deal?
Yeah, I reckon we'll run away. I reckon the next one will be a traditional one.
Yeah,
with
legacy
Fox
media.
And 9 or 7 have got an interest in the broadcast. I reckon the one after that's going to be really interesting. The issue this time will be how much money they get. The issue for the next one will be how they split it up, I reckon.
But if we have more eyeballs than any other game in Australia, which is what we're hearing, we should do a good deal the next one anyway.
You would hope so.
We will.
All right. Brilliant. Way to wrap it up. Thanks so much for joining us throughout this series. The administrator, Tony Mestrov, the coach, Shane Flanagan, player, Aaron Woods, and of course, journalist, Brent Reid. It's been an absolute pleasure talking the biggest issues in the game. And thanks for listening, everyone. Been an absolute pleasure.